there is a hidden trait, invisible to the masses, that decides who wins before the first move. It isn't luck, talent, or charisma. Machiavelli knew it was colder. A weapon disguised as a natural quality, making people underestimate you until their defenses collapse. In this video, I'll expose the layers of this trait, how to build it, conceal it, and unleash it when the outcome is already yours. Watch closely, think critically, and tell me in the comments if you've ever used it without realizing, or if someone has used it on you. They watch each other without pause, scanning, dissecting, and ranking every soul in the room. Every glance is a measurement. Every pause is an opening. Every careless word is a crack in the armor. In this constant silent war of observation, most betray themselves within minutes. They speak too much. They move too quickly. Their patterns become visible. Their weaknesses charted like a map. But the ones who move in quiet shadows, they remain a question no one can answer. And that question is dangerous. You carry a weapon no one has named yet. It is not charisma. It is not intellect. It is the ability to remain unreadable while dissecting everything in front of you. You let them speak, reveal, and exhaust themselves in the noise of their own self-disclosure. You stay still, you stay calm, and in that stillness, they begin to imagine things about you. Things that may not exist. The less they know, the more they fear, is not poetry. It is a rule of survival. The ambiguity you project forces them to create shadows where there is only silence. That silence becomes your shield. You know how quickly people give themselves away. Their need to be understood is stronger than their need to be safe. They explain themselves in detail, thinking it earns trust. But all it does is hand you the blueprint of their psychology. Every fear, every desire, every hidden insecurity, all of it laid out without you asking. Your absence of reaction unnerves them. They can't tell if you approve, judge, or even care. The tension of not knowing makes them talk more. And with each word, they dig deeper into the pit you've prepared for them. You understand that restraint is not weakness. It is the hand that holds the blade until the throat is within reach. Most will swing too soon, revealing their edge and dulling its impact. You will not. You will let them think you are unarmed. You will watch their confidence swell, their guard drop, their arrogance make them blind. And then, at the exact moment of their greatest certainty, you move. The strike comes without warning because you were never on their list of threats. And when it lands, they will not only feel the pain, they will feel the horror of realizing you were there, watching all along. So you train yourself in emotional opacity. You keep your expressions shallow, your reactions delayed. You answer questions with questions, forcing them to expose themselves further. You never rush to fill silence. Instead, you let it stretch until it becomes unbearable for them, but comfortable for you. You let others reveal themselves first. And when you finally act, it will feel as if the blow came from nowhere, a move they could neither anticipate nor defend against. This is the power no one sees coming, not because it is invisible, but because it lives in the blind spot of every human mind. The refusal to believe that silence can be lethal. Have you ever think why visibility is your greatest weakness? In any arena where status decides survival, the eyes of others are not passive observers. They are predators, measuring you with every glance. Every display of skill becomes a challenge to outmatch. Every show of strength becomes an unspoken dare to break you. And every expectation you create is an open invitation for them to study where you will fail. Under constant light, even the sharpest weapon begins to dull. The hidden trait that grants an unfair edge is born in the shadows. Where measurement is impossible, you believe showing your power will protect you. It won't. It only tells them how to dismantle you. The moment they can measure your abilities, they begin rehearsing their counterattack. They study your patterns, map your strengths, and mark your blind spots. Once they can measure you, they can control you. The more you reveal, the more predictable you become. And predictability is the first sign of weakness. You hand them the keys to your own undoing while thinking you're intimidating them. Your enemies will never attack the parts of you they can't see. This is why the visible leader always takes the first arrow. You will find that applause is a dangerous drug. It makes you believe exposure is safety. But the same crowd that lifts you up today is the one that will dissect you tomorrow. Every public victory becomes a target on your back. Every show of dominance plants the seed for someone else's rebellion. The more they can see, the easier it is to aim. So you must learn the discipline of absence, not the absence of action, the absence of obviousness. You move without broadcasting your moves. You speak without revealing your position. You hold your capabilities like concealed blades, showing nothing until the moment you strike. This is strategic invisibility, letting the loudest ones exhaust themselves in the open while you advance in the shadows. When conflict brews, you do not stand at the front. You step sideways, blend into the noise, and let the visible threats attract the heat. You will find that the most devastating victories come not from crushing an enemy in open view, but from maneuvering so quietly that by the time they realize you were the one who broke them, you are already somewhere else, untouched, unseen. You must have to develop the predator's patience in every arena of power. The first to move is rarely the one who wins. Most are slaves to urgency, driven by the itch to act, to seize, to be seen doing something. They mistake motion for progress, aggression for dominance. But haste is a predator's weakness. The true edge belongs to the one who can remain still, while others burn themselves out, the one who lets 100 chances pass until the single perfect one appears and ends everything. You crave movement because stillness feels like weakness. You measure progress by how often you strike, how much ground you cover, how visible your victories are. But this is the instinct of prey. Predators do not count their kills in frequency. They count them in precision. The more you move, the more you reveal. The more you reveal, the easier you are to corner. Patience is not passive. It is pressure disguised as silence. While you wait, others fidget. Their words grow less calculated, their movements less guarded. You learn their fears, not because they told you, but because you gave them the space to betray themselves. Machiavelli understood this truth when he wrote, "The lion's teeth are nothing without the patience of the serpent." Strength without timing is wasted force. Most people cannot endure the tension of unbroken stillness. They begin to create their own noise just to fill the quiet. This is when they overcommit, overshare, and overreach. You, on the other hand, stay still until their own momentum pulls them into a position they cannot escape. The moment they cross that invisible line, you move. Not before, not after. And when you strike, it feels as if it came from nowhere. In politics, This patience turns allies against each other without you lifting a finger. In negotiation, it forces the other side to bid against themselves. In personal conflict, it makes the other party appear irrational while you appear composed. The longer they wait for your reaction, the more power shifts in your favor. Not because you act, but because you refuse to. Waiting is not the absence of action. It is action in its most concentrated form. Every second you delay forces your opponent to fight battles in their own mind. Inventing your motives, predicting your moves, doubting their position. By the time you finally make your move, they've already fought themselves into exhaustion. Controlled inaction is the weapon that leaves no trace until it's too late. It is the discipline to ignore provocations, to resist proving yourself, to watch while others bleed their energy into empty gestures. The predator's patience is not about being slow. It's about being inevitable, and inevitability is far more terrifying than speed. You must adopt the ability of reading the room before anyone else. In every room, the true game is never the one being played in plain sight. Power moves beneath the surface, in the pauses between words, in the weight of glances, in the shifts of posture when certain names are spoken. Titles are irrelevant. Loud voices are distractions. The real influence hides in the currents no one names. Most are blind to them. The rare few see them instantly and bend them before anyone knows they exist. You step into a room and feel the weight of every presence before a single word is spoken. While others rush to assert themselves, you stay still, absorbing the rhythm. You listen not for what is said, but for what is avoided. You watch the way eyes linger, the way bodies turn, the way small movements betray hidden loyalties. They think they're meeting in plain sight, but in truth, they're performing for you. Every person carries a tell, a slight pause before answering, a tightening in the jaw when certain names are mentioned, a smile that is just 1 degree too polite. The room speaks in layers, and you read it fluently. Machiavelli understood this when he observed that men are so simple and so much creatures of circumstance that the deceiver will always find someone ready to be deceived. Once you see the fault lines before anyone else, you can press them at will, directing the flow of events without being seen as the source. Most people's strategy is reactive. They respond to what unfolds in front of them. Yours is predictive. You already know who will side with whom before they make the choice themselves. You know whose ego is fragile enough to be flattered into compliance, and whose ambition is dangerous enough to require quiet containment. While they reveal themselves slowly, you've already drawn their map. And once you hold the map, you control the territory. The key is never to reveal how much you know. Let them believe you are only casually engaged, only half listening. When you finally act, a question posed at the perfect moment, a suggestion planted in just the right ear. It feels like an accident to them, but it was deliberate to you. Your move seems light, but the ripple it creates shifts the entire current. This is why you must enter every space as an observer before you become a participant. Speak less than the others. Watch more than they think you are watching. Ask questions that seem harmless, but force them to reveal their alliances. Let them underestimate your awareness, because the moment they think you see nothing is the moment you see everything. Never waste this advantage on petty displays. Use it for moments that matter. The vote that tips in your favor, the partnership that shifts away from your rival, the silence that forces someone to speak more than they should. When you act on what they didn't even know you knew, it will feel like you've read their mind. They will call it intuition. You will know it is simply the discipline to see what they ignored. Your unfair edge is not in how loudly you speak, but in how deeply you notice. The room always has a heartbeat. Most never hear it. But you enter, you listen, and you match your breath to its rhythm. And when you change that rhythm, the entire room will move to your pace. Without ever realizing it was you. Always control the flow of information. In every hierarchy, true power is invisible. It does not shout, and it does not announce itself. It lives in the quiet control of information, in deciding what is revealed, what is concealed. And when each truth is allowed to surface, information is not neutral. It is a weapon in the hands of the skilled. It rewires perception, forges alliances, and destroys enemies without ever drawing a blade. The one who dictates the narrative dictates the fate of all who hear it. You think strength comes from what you can do, but in truth, it comes from what you can make others believe. Control what they know, and you control what they do. When you choose who receives information, you decide the battlefield before they even realize a conflict exists. They will act on the picture you give them, blind to the pieces you withhold. The most decisive moves in power are not made in public. They are made in the silent architecture of perception. You have felt it before. The moment someone looks to you for clarity, they ask a question, not because you are the only one who can answer it, but because they have learned to depend on you for certainty. This is the position you must engineer. As Machiavelli wrote, the promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. You owe them nothing but the image you choose to project. Give them enough truth to seem credible, but never the whole truth. Each fact you release must be weighed, measured, and timed. This is where the hidden trait sharpens into an edge. Information asymmetry. Always know more than you reveal. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to collect intelligence, not to disperse it. Let them speak freely. Let them expose themselves. And let their eagerness to impress you become their undoing. People are careless with their own words, but they cling to every word you release. This is not accidental. It is conditioning. You can make them chase shadows. A fragment of truth here, a misleading implication there, enough to occupy their attention while the real moves happen elsewhere. The most dangerous opponent is the one who fights a war that isn't even being fought. This is why you must seed false trails when necessary. Not every piece of misinformation needs to be a lie. Sometimes the truth, placed in the wrong context, is the most effective weapon. Over time, they stop questioning the source. You become the axis around which their decisions revolve. They plan based on what you've told them. They fear what you've hinted at, and they hesitate when you say nothing at all. Silence in this position is not absence. It is control. When others are desperate for clarity, your restraint becomes their dependency. This is the real nature of the hidden trait. To command the flow of information so precisely that you never need to force obedience. You let them walk willingly into the outcome you have already chosen for them. They will think they acted on their own judgment, never realizing it was built on the architecture you designed from the start. And when they finally see the full picture, it will be too late to change it. Adopt the calculated reveal. In every contest of power, the greatest advantage is not in what is held, but in when it is shown. Strength displayed too early becomes a target. Strength withheld for too long rots into wasted potential. The masters of strategy understand that influence is not a constant broadcast. It is a weapon kept sheathed until the exact moment when its appearance will break the enemy before the first blow lands. You already know the instinct to prove yourself, the urge to show your power, to assert dominance before anyone can doubt you. But power squandered on impulse becomes predictable. Your edge lies in restraint, in letting others believe they have the upper hand while you remain silent, holding your unseen advantage. A single reveal at the right time can rewrite the entire game, not because it changes your ability, but because it changes their belief about you. They will relax around you, confident in your supposed weakness. They will underestimate you, thinking they've read the measure of your capacity. This is the illusion you cultivate. As Machiavelli observed, the wise man does at once what the fool does finally. You don't waste your strength in every skirmish. You let situations decay, tensions peak, and your adversary lean too far into their imagined victory until the moment comes when your concealed resource strikes without warning. You can feel it when the moment ripens. It's the silence before the storm breaks, the pause when your enemy is overextended, convinced the outcome is secure. That is when your revelation becomes a blade, the asset you've hidden, a skill, an ally, a piece of intelligence emerges like it was always meant to be there. And in that instant, their confidence collapses. They are not simply facing your strength. They are facing the realization that they never knew your limits. The psychological damage runs deeper than the immediate defeat. They begin to question every past encounter with you. What else did you hide? What other forces remain unseen? Even when the battle ends, this doubt lingers, making them hesitant to ever challenge you directly again. This is the long shadow cast by a calculated reveal. The idea that you are always more than you appear. The tactic is simple, but it demands discipline. Keep a strategic reserve. Let the pressure build. Allow your opposition to grow comfortable, even arrogant. Then, in one decisive movement, shift the balance entirely. This is not just a win. It is a rewriting of the hierarchy, a permanent psychological imprint that you are not to be underestimated. And the next time they stand across from you, they will remember the day they thought they were winning, right up until the moment they weren't. Become the unreadable force. In every hierarchy, those most often targeted are the ones whose patterns are visible. Predictability invites challenge. The moment an adversary understands how someone thinks, moves, or reacts, they begin building the means to undermine them. History favors not the strongest, but the most elusive, the figure whose presence is undeniable, yet whose intentions remain invisible. What cannot be defined cannot be cornered. You have seen how quickly people judge. They crave labels, categories, a mental box to place you in. It is their way of feeling safe, of believing they know what to expect. The moment they believe they've read you, they start preparing for you. And that is why you must dismantle this belief before it takes root. Your survival, your dominance, depends on being a shifting target, one they can never predict with certainty. There is a quiet power in confusion, not the chaos of the reckless, but the precision of the unreadable. You present one face, then another, each true in its own way, but never the full picture. You allow them to gather pieces, yet the image never forms. As Machiavelli wrote, "It is double pleasure to deceive the deceiver." And in doing so, you ensure that every move they make in response to you is a guess, never a certainty. This unreadability is not about being loud or dramatic. It is the discipline to hold back when provoked, to move when stillness is expected, to act decisively only when others are convinced you've disengaged. You create small disruptions in their mental map of you, enough to remind them they do not have the whole story. This forces them into hesitation, a hesitation that gives you time, space, and the upper hand. Invisibility, patience, and controlled perception are your raw materials. Together, they form an aura that others interpret as mystery. Your rivals hesitate to strike because they cannot see where the counterblow will land. Your allies tread carefully because they suspect there is more to you than you allow them to see. And in this space of uncertainty, you operate freely, influencing events without ever standing fully in the light. You must commit to long-term strategic ambiguity. This is not a mask you wear for moments. It is a posture you hold indefinitely, appear indifferent to matters that consume others, then, without warning, become decisive when they least expect it. Give away fragments of your intentions, but never enough to form a complete plan. These contradictions keep others off balance, forcing them to abandon the idea of ever truly understanding you. Each miscalculation they make becomes part of your advantage. The more they guess wrong, the more they begin to assume that guessing is useless. They will adapt not by outmaneuvering you, but by conceding to your unpredictability. This is the unspoken rule you teach them, that your moves cannot be anticipated, only endured. Once they accept this, you hold them in a state of constant psychological submission without ever needing to openly dominate them. The hidden trait reaches its peak here. It is no longer just a skill you use. It becomes the way you exist in every arena. You are not the loudest, not the most visible, yet you occupy their thoughts more than anyone else. You become the uncertainty they have to factor into every decision. And while they waste energy trying to read you, you are already moving toward your next strike, unseen and unopposed.